Alan is a 30-year-old hardcore gamer who hasn't seen sunlight in weeks, and honestly, who could blame him? He just finished a no-hit run of Sekiro and Dark Souls at the same time. With GTA 6 still nowhere in sight, he goes online looking for something new to play and stumbles upon a mysterious game that never ends. A game installing itself without permission should be terrifying, but Alan is already hooked. He cranks the difficulty straight to hell mode, picks an untested summoner class for extra chaos, and blindly accepts the terms and conditions. Big mistake. One tiny clause later, Alan wakes up reborn as a baby in another world. A whole year passes, and baby life isn't so bad. No job, no bills, and two loving parents named Roden and Threa. Still, since he chose hell mode, Alan is pretty sure tragedy is just waiting around the corner. One night, Alan starts waving his baby arms around, shouting random gamer phrases, desperately trying to open a status screen. Just when he's about to give up, a mysterious book finally appears, scaring him so badly that he screams and alerts his parents. After they leave, he checks the book again and finally sees his stats. As expected, his summoning skills are absolute trash, but they can level up with use, so that's promising. He learns he can only summon H-rank insects and beasts, which sounds painfully weak. Then he receives a message from a mysterious voice apologizing for the delay. Apparently, the summoner class was still under development. Alan doesn't care about the apology, but unfinished systems mean bugs, and bugs mean exploits. He's excited. After some trial and error, Alan figures out how summoning works. He has to create skill cards first. The next morning, he finally summons a giant grasshopper. It looks amazing, until it flies straight into his face. Turns out, summoned creatures still have animal-level intelligence, so giving commands is pointless. The upside? The summon boosts his stats. The downside? His mom walks in and squishes it instantly. Not discouraged, Alan experiments more. He summons a mouse next, which also launches itself at his face. This one gives buffs too, and has a skill called Scurry, which it actually obeys, but the ability is completely useless. Still, Alan discovers something huge. He can stack up to 10 summon cards, and all buffs stack. 10 mouse cards mean extra attack and HP, making him stronger than any normal baby. He's still weak by game standards, but now Alan knows one thing for sure. Once he levels up his summoning skills, this world is going to be very unbalanced. Normally, leveling up wouldn't be a big deal, but Alan chose hell mode because he thought suffering would be fun. Now he finds out that gaining levels needs 100 times more experience than normal, which means he's stuck grinding like his life depends on it. One day, his father Roden comes back from hunting, completely covered in blood. Don't worry, it's not his. He explains that he and the village men just took down a great boar, and Alan is instantly curious. Roden asks if he wants to see it, and Alan excitedly agrees. Roden lifts him onto his shoulders and carries him out, giving Alan his first real look at the outside world. The walk takes longer than expected, though, and Alan ends up falling asleep along the way. When they finally arrive, Roden wakes him up and Alan is stunned. The boar is huge, way bigger than he imagined. He can't even understand how Roden managed to kill it. Soon, the villagers notice Roden's return and start cheering for him like he's today's MVP. Alan asks if the great boar is really that strong, and a woman named Gerda explains that it's a C-rank monster that usually takes at least 20 men to defeat. That information is gold for Alan. It gives him a clear idea of how big the power gap between ranks really is. Still, before he can dream of summoning anything like that, Alan has one painful task ahead of him: more grinding. After 10 months of non-stop effort, Alan finally reaches level 2 as a summoner. The rewards are solid. His stats increase across the board, and he can now summon G-rank creatures and even fuse them. There's just one problem: fusion eats up a ton of mana. Alan quickly finishes his dinner to recover MP and rushes back to his room to try it out. No luck. His grimoire tells him his maximum MP is still too low. In other words, back to grinding. By the time Alan turns 3 years old, he finally has enough MP to use his level 2 skill. With the fusion system unlocked, he creates his very first fused summon, a G-rank bird. Proud of his creation, Alan gives it a name: Chappie. Chappie's main ability is voice mimicry. It can perfectly copy any sound or voice, making it amazing for confusing or distracting enemies. Alan also summons a frog and a mole. The frog's only talent is hopping around while flashing like a living disco light, which is useful as a distraction, I guess. The mole, on the other hand, is actually impressive. It can dig a huge hole in just a few seconds. Compared to H-rank summons, these G-rank skills are a massive upgrade, and Alan finally starts enjoying this game like world. Still, he knows he's far from strong enough to fight real monsters. That's when Gerda's daughter, Karina, shows up, looking to play with Alan. Unfortunately, her idea of playing is dueling. Alan uses every buff he has just to survive, but Karina is way too strong. By the end of the day, Alan limps home, thoroughly defeated. Back home, Alan learns some big news. His mother is pregnant again. Since Therja can't do heavy work anymore, Alan offers to help with the harvest. Thanks to all his buffs, he basically has the strength and stamina of an adult. Still, his parents refuse. They tell him to stick to small chores and enjoy being a kid. Roden reminds him that he'll have plenty of time to work when he grows up, so he should enjoy his childhood while he can. Alan is annoyed at first, but then remembers how brutal farm work actually is and decides they're probably right. During dinner, Therja mentions seeing Alan throwing rocks at a tree earlier and asks what that was about. Alan claims he was training for self-defense in case monsters attack. In reality, he was testing whether repeating actions could unlock new skills, but it didn't work. Roden is impressed by Alan's dedication and says he's looking forward to his appraisal ceremony. Alan asks what that is, and Roden explains that when kids turn 5, they're evaluated to see what talents they have. If Alan gets a strong talent, he could become rich and successful someday. When winter arrives, Alan summons a grasshopper in the snow just to see how long it can survive. It lasts a full day, which makes him proud until Karina shows up again and challenges him to another fight. As expected, Alan loses badly. In the chaos, he forgets about the grasshopper, which crawls onto Therja's leg and scares her so badly that she falls over. And falling while pregnant is very bad. Roden rushes to her side. She says she's fine, but she isn't. The fall sends her straight into labor. Like it or not, the baby is coming today. Roden tells Karina to fetch her mother, who helps Therja through the delivery. By morning, the family welcomes a healthy baby boy. Everyone is happy, but Alan feels conflicted. He still doesn't fully understand why a game reincarnated him into this world. Still, when he thinks about his old life in Japan, he realizes he didn't have much to lose. So instead of questioning it, Alan makes a decision. He'll focus on getting stronger and protecting his new family, because they matter more than anything. And that's how episode 1 comes to an end. By spring, Alan's appraisal ceremony is finally getting close, so he asks his dad what it's all about. His dad explains that every child has to be appraised when they turn 5, and if someone gets an amazing skill, they might even make it big. But this year is especially competitive since many kids are turning 5, including Karina. The whole village heads to the commoner city for the appraisal. As they near the church, Alan notices something awkward. Everyone else is well dressed, while he's basically wearing rags. Then it hits him, he's been wearing rags his entire life. His family must be really poor in this world. Still, he doesn't let it bother him. When the priests arrive, some people start mocking the poorer villagers. The priests shut that down immediately, reminding everyone that blessings are given equally. Even a poor farmer can receive an incredible skill. With that, everyone is told to enter the church. Inside, Alan notices 3 statues. One of them is Elmia, the same voice who once sent him an apology letter for delaying his class. Yeah, awkward. The appraisals begin. First up is Palomas, the village chief's son. He places his hand on the crystal ball, and his stats appear on the wall. He gets the merchant class, which makes his father very happy. Alan finds the whole process underwhelming. It's basically his grimoire system, just with letter ranks instead of numbers. As more kids go up, some get strong talents, while others get nothing at all. Eventually, only Krina and Alan are left. Krina goes first. She excitedly places her hand on the crystal, and suddenly, it explodes with blinding light. Her father panics, thinking something went wrong, but the priests are just stunned. Krina has been blessed with the Sword Lord class, one of the strongest classes in existence. Her dad is overjoyed, though Krina herself doesn't fully get the hype. Alan, on the other hand, isn't surprised at all. She's been beating him up for years. Then it's Alan's turn. He touches the crystal. Nothing happens at first. Then flash, he gets knocked backward. His dad rushes to check on him and asks the priest what talent Alan received, since he can't read. The answer hits hard. Alan is completely talentless. This makes zero sense to Alan. He knows he has a class, but when he looks at the results, all his stats are E rank across the board. He immediately blames Elmia for doing a terrible job coding the summoner class. Seeing Alan upset, his dad hugs him and comforts him. They head home, and despite everything, his family treats him exactly the same. Alan appreciates that, but he knows the truth. He can still use his grimoire just fine. He figures it out. He's playing on Hell mode. Since he needs 100 times more XP to level up, his stats are stuck at E rank, even though he's actually strong. For most people, this would be devastating. But Alan isn't a casual gamer, he lives for painful grinding. Still, he does notice a strange error code in his appraisal and plans to send a lot of complaints to the devs. The next day, Alan's family visits Krina's house to celebrate her Sword Lord appraisal. But something feels off. Alan's dad is acting strangely. During the visit, tensions rise, and it's revealed that Alan's dad suggested cutting ties between the families. His reasoning: Krina now has a guaranteed future. She could become nobility, and being associated with a poor family might hold her back. Krina's dad is furious and says he doesn't care about status. The argument gets heated until their wives step in. Later, Alan learns that all 4 adults were childhood friends who built the village together years ago. Remembering that makes them realize how pointless the fight was. Soon after, news spreads that the Knight's Order has taken interest in Krina and is coming to see her. While this is exciting, her parents worry she's still just 5. Things get worse when another talented kid insults Alan for being talentless. Alan doesn't care, but Krina absolutely does. She nearly cuts off the kid's finger before being stopped. Then the Knight's Order finally arrives. The Knight Captain meets Krina and suggests taking her for training immediately. Her father refuses, saying she's too young. The captain scoffs age doesn't matter for a sword lord. And just to be sure they're not lying, the captain orders his vice captain to duel Krina, a 5-year-old. Without hesitation, the vice captain agrees. Gerda begs the knight captain to reconsider. He doesn't want his daughter's life put at risk. But the captain shuts him down immediately. If Krina refuses to fight, it will be taken as proof that she lied about her class, and in that case, she and her entire family will be executed. Yeah, no pressure. The knights hand Krina a real sword. Most kids would be crying by now, but Krina, the moment she realizes she gets to use an actual weapon, she happily accepts the duel. She's battle-hungry, not scared. Everyone takes their positions as Lebron faces off against Krina. The duel begins, and Krina charges straight at him. And yes, your eyes are working, she's swinging a sword twice her height like it weighs nothing. She even manages to push Lebron back a bit, though he's still handling her without much trouble. The knight captain looks unimpressed. Krina blocks one of Lebron's attacks and prepares to strike back, but instead, Lebron kicks her across the street and into a wall. Gerda loses it. He tries to rush in, but the knights slam him to the ground. Roden and Alan are also restrained when they attempt to interfere. Alan thinks this whole thing is ridiculous. Sword Lord or not, an adult will always have more combat experience than a 5-year-old. But then Krina stands up. A terrifying aura surrounds her. Without saying a word, she launches another all-out attack, completely focused. This time, she overwhelms Lebron so badly that she slices his sword in half and nearly takes his head off. The fight ends instantly. Krina looks disappointed that it's already over, but she had fun. She politely thanks Lebron for playing with her and walks away, leaving him to process the fact that he just lost to a 5-year-old. Gerda rushes to Krina, relieved she's okay, and praises her. But the Knight Captain approaches again, making Jira defensive. He doesn't want the man anywhere near his daughter. This time, the captain admits the truth. Krina is absolutely a sword lord. He apologizes for forcing her into such a brutal duel and asks to discuss her future. Gerda refuses at first, but the captain offers to meet with their friends present. Feeling safer, Gerda agrees. They gather at the chief's house for lunch. The captain Zenoff explains himself. 3 years ago, a noble family claimed to have a sword saint, which raised suspicion. Sword saints can only be born to low-status families. That sword saint was later exposed as a fraud, along with several nobles who exaggerated their talents. Since then, the kingdom enforces a zero-tolerance policy on fake appraisals. Zenoff admits Krina's trial was too harsh. He assures Gerda they won't take her away. She can train at home, and when she turns 12, she may attend the academy and become a knight if she wants. And 2 years later, Alan finally unlocks level 3 of his grimoire, and he's thrilled. The level up gives him the enhanced skill, letting him strengthen his summons. On top of that, he can now hold 30 cards at once, meaning the buffs he can stack are about to get ridiculous. He plans to test everything later, but for now, dinner calls. As for Alan's family, his little brother is turning 2, and his mom is pregnant again, this time with a baby girl. His parents start discussing names, but right then, Alan receives a message from Elmia. Without thinking, he blurts out her name. Unfortunately, his parents misunderstand and think he's suggesting naming the baby after a god, which is a massive taboo. Alan can't explain himself, so he quickly changes the topic by pointing out that Gerda's scars have mysteriously vanished. Gerda explains that he passed a trial of the gods earlier that day while fighting a boar. Alan has never heard of that, so Jira explains that sometimes after battle, warriors feel refreshed and fully healed. Alan assumes it's just a side effect of leveling up. Since Gerda is a strong fighter, he probably levels up often. Alan, on the other hand, has a level 3 grimoire, but his body is still level 1 because he hasn't fought any monsters yet. If Alan wants to grow stronger, he'll have to fight, but that's easier said than done. He isn't allowed to leave the village without permission, except during hunting expeditions. When Alan casually suggests joining the next hunt, his father shuts it down immediately. He doesn't want his son anywhere near danger. That night, after everyone falls asleep, Alan reads a message from Elmia in his grimoire explaining that a system bug made him appear talentless during appraisal. It's now fixed. His true class, Summoner, will show next time. His stats showed E rank only because he's on Hell mode, so a new stats section reveals the truth. He actually has multiple A and S rank stats, comparable to Krina. Excited, Alan tests the enhanced skill on a grasshopper summon, boosting its stats, but when he materializes it, his mom barges in and instantly kills it. The next day, while Gerda goes hunting, Alan experiments more and finally succeeds at fusion, gaining a new grass card that boosts MP. Summoning it produces a strange apple creature with no combat ability, but an aroma skill. It plants itself and releases a pleasant scent, which his mom mistakes for a normal plant. Training later with Krina, Alan still loses but realizes he's tougher, and his sword mastery reaches level 3. Frustrated after failing to unlock new skills and babysitting Mash, he feels discouraged until Mash notices new saplings around the house, caused by Alan spamming apple summons. The MP boost improves his mana recovery from 6 to 5 hours, giving him over 15% more daily MP. That evening, tension rises when Gerda doesn't return. Hunters soon arrive in panic, carrying Rodin, who was gored by a boar. The wound was cauterized, but he's barely alive. The only reason he survived the trip back was because they used an expensive healing herb. Derja is shocked they shouldn't have been able to afford it. Gerda explains that the Knight Captain had apologized earlier and gave them gold coins, which they used to buy the herb. Still, it wasn't enough to save Rodin completely. The hunters start shouting, blaming commoners for the incident. The noise wakes Mash, who begins crying. Alan takes him to bed while the hunters leave to give the family some peace. Later, Alan asks what really happened. Gerda explains that a few days ago, the village chief ordered them to allow commoners to join the next hunt. Boar meat is valuable, most of it goes to the Baron, and the rest is shared among the hunters. Since commoners rarely get meat, joining a hunt was tempting. But there's a reason no commoner has ever volunteered before. Hunting boars is extremely dangerous. Every year, hunts end with injuries and sometimes deaths, so commoners usually stay far away. But Roden had recently earned a reputation as a legendary hunter, which made people careless. Many commoners thought that as long as Roden was there, he'd handle the boar while they collected the rewards afterward. Because of this, they asked the village chief to let them join the hunts. Roden and Jira strongly disagreed, but an order from the chief couldn't be refused. So the commoners were allowed in and everything went exactly as badly as expected. During training, the commoners barely tried. When the real hunt began and they faced a boar, they panicked, dropped their weapons, and ran, breaking the formation. One of them tripped, and Roden rushed in to save him, only to be gored in the stomach. The hunters eventually killed the boar. Jira promises to bring Roden's share of the meat, but Alan feels guilty. He realizes he's been treating this world like a game, when for everyone else, its real life and survival is on the line. If he has power, he should use it to help. By morning, Roden wakes up, though he's still badly injured and likely won't be able to hunt before winter. Gerda offers to share his supplies, and Alan steps forward, declaring he'll take Roden's place. Seeing how serious he is, no one objects. Alan immediately starts helping, carrying heavy water with ease and harvesting potatoes one-handed, shocking Gerda. That's when he learns most of the harvest goes to the Baron, which feels unfair. The village chief later arrives to apologize, admitting partial fault and bringing the frightened commoner responsible. Roden forgives him, warning him to be more careful. Later, Alan tries to hunt on his own. He summons frogs to lure prey, but instead attracts a monster bird. He considers running, but chooses to fight for his family's sake. He lands the first hit and summons dogs to attack, but the bird overwhelms them. With his summons gone and buffs fading, Alan is left in serious danger. If he doesn't act fast, he's about to become bird food. Luckily, he gets one last chance and summons 2 leeches that latch onto the bird's neck. He's never tested them in real combat before, but to his relief, they drain the creature's energy, weakening it just enough to turn the tide. Once he breaks free, Alan summons even more leeches and wolves. Working together, they finally manage to bring the monster down. Alan can barely believe it, this is his very first kill. His grimoire confirms the bird is dead, and he even earns 100 XP as a reward. Later that day, Alan returns home carrying the massive bird, leaving his family completely stunned. They can't believe he actually managed to kill something like that. Alan brushes it off, saying he caught it while it was distracted, which is technically true, though he conveniently leaves out the part about his summons. Gerda starts examining the corpse, confused about how Alan could defeat it with only a wooden sword and some rocks. When he notices bite marks, he asks about them. Alan quickly claims he was fighting on instinct and did whatever he had to. Gerda imagines Alan biting the bird in desperation, but either way, he admits it's an impressive feat and congratulates him. Gerda even helps Alan prepare the meat since it's his first time. The bird originally weighs around 60 kilos, but after being bled, it drops to about 20. Only half of that is edible, though the wings sell for a good price, and there's also a magic stone. Still, most of it has to be handed over as tax. Alan complains about the unfair 60% food tax, and Gerda agrees, but normally, there's nothing they can do about it. This time is different. Because of Alan's unique situation, they decide to negotiate with the chief. At the chief's office, Gerda suggests that Alan should only give up the wings and keep the rest. The chief hesitates, saying the Baron demanded extra food this year. Gerda reminds him that Alan only went hunting because of the chief's unreasonable demands, which led to Rod getting injured. To really sell it, Alan pretends he's about to pass out from hunger. The chief feels guilty but still hesitates until Gerda offers the magic stone as part of the deal. That finally seals it. Not stopping there, Alan asks if he can keep most of the meat from any future birds he catches. The chief agrees, assuming there's no way a kid could pull that off again anytime soon. He's very wrong. Soon after, Alan manages to lure in 2 birds at once. By now, he's perfected his strategy. Leeches to drain them, rocks to stun them, wolves to attack, and a final smack with his sword to finish the job. He's been hunting every 3 days, and this is the first time he wins without losing a single summon. Even better, he finally levels up. Reaching level 2 gives him a 60% stat boost, not as high as he hoped, but still huge. It took him 6 years to level up once, and now that he finally has, he decides it's time to tell his family the truth. He explains that he's not talentless and that he received a divine oracle as a baby, making him stronger and smarter, but at the cost of having to work much harder than everyone else. His parents believe him, though they're worried it sounds more like a curse. Alan admits they're not wrong. He explains that his talent was too new to be detected, which is why he was labeled talentless. While relieved, his parents wish he'd told them sooner. Alan chooses not to reveal that he's a summoner yet, unsure how people would react. With winter arriving, Alan starts trading the bird meat he saved, with Gerda guiding him. As long as no careless commoners get involved, hunts usually go smoothly, which makes Alan wonder what really separates people like him and Gerda from ordinary villagers. Gerda explains that commoners sit a step above serfs on the social ladder, and their taxes reflect that. Serfs have to hand over a painful 60% of all the food they produce, while commoners only pay a head tax, 1 gold coin per person each year. Naturally, Alan asks the big question: can a serf become a commoner? Gerda says yes, but it'll cost 10 gold coins per person. Alan does the math in his head. With another baby on the way, he'd need a total of 50 gold coins to upgrade his entire family. That's a huge amount of money, but he's determined to make it happen, no matter how long it takes. He spends the rest of the day following Gerda around, learning how the barter system works. By the second day, he understands it well enough to trade on his own. 5 pieces of jerky can buy a bag of salt, and that same bag is worth 5 silver coins. That means 1 piece of meat equals 1 silver coin. Since 1 gold coin is worth 100 silver, Alan realizes he'll need the equivalent of 500 pieces of Alderaan meat to save up enough. It sounds insane, but in his mind, it's totally doable within a few years. Next, Alan visits a potion shop and asks about MP recovery potions. The clerk laughs and says he doesn't sell anything that fancy. So Alan asks about healing herbs instead. That question hits a nerve. The clerk remembers selling one to a desperate man named Gerda years ago. The herb usually costs 5 gold coins, but Gerda only had 3 and begged for a discount to save his friend's life. Though worried he'd been scammed, the clerk helped him anyway, and to his credit, Gerda later came back to pay the rest. Realizing his father might not be alive without that kindness, Alan thanks the clerk sincerely and gives him a piece of bird meat as a gift. While walking through town, Alan passes a weapon shop and nearly chokes when he sees that a single weapon can cost up to 50 gold coins. But before he can think too hard about it, trouble finds him. Dagura suddenly shows up, trying to bully Alan into becoming his lackey. Alan isn't having it. He calmly puts his bag down, pulls out his wooden sword, and points it straight at Dagura. Alan could end the fight right there, but he wants it to be fair, so he tells Dagura to go grab a weapon. Confident he's got the advantage, Dagura runs off and comes back with his club. Big mistake. Thanks to his training with Krina, Alan absolutely wipes the floor with him. By spring, Dagura is regularly showing up at Alan's house asking for training, though he's still nowhere near Alan's level. Mash also starts training with Krina, but she goes much easier on him since he's still a beginner. That night, Roden and Gerda return with bad news. The Baron has raised the hunting quota from 10 boars to 15 and worse. He's ordered that commoners be allowed to join the hunt again. After last time, everyone knows that's a terrible idea. But a direct order from the Baron can't be ignored, so they're forced to agree and hope nothing goes wrong. That's when Alan speaks up. The real problem with commoners joining the hunt is that they're completely untrained. But Alan has spent countless hours playing Amos, and he's confident he can turn even the worst newbies into useful teammates. so he asks to be put in charge of training the commoners before the hunt begins. When the next hunt finally arrives, Roden takes Alan to meet the other hunters and announces that they'll be using one of Alan's new strategies. But he makes one thing clear: Alan is only here to watch today, not fight. Alan agrees, even though he's secretly disappointed because he was hoping to level up. Still, Roden doesn't change his mind, saying the main goal is to properly train the newbies so nothing goes wrong like last time. Speaking of last time, the boy who got Roden hurt comes over to apologize again and tells him not to risk his life protecting him. Roden calmly replies that all he has to do is focus on his role, and if everyone does their job right, nothing bad will happen. Soon, the hunting group heads into the forest, and for Alan, it's his first time outside the village walls. Naturally, he's super excited. Once they arrive, Gerda explains the plan. A few newbies act as bait to lure out a wild boar. When the boar charges in, Gerda's team stops it, and Roden's group rushes from the sides, stabbing it repeatedly. This method has worked for 10 years, but not so well with scared beginners. That's where Alan's idea comes in. Instead of putting the newbies in danger, they stay off to the side. When the boar is nearly defeated, Alan signals them to rush in and land a few hits. Since you only need to deal a little damage to earn experience in this world, the plan works perfectly. The boar falls and boom, the newbies feel power surge through their bodies. They've leveled up. Alan is thrilled, but also slightly annoyed because he didn't get any XP himself. The next day, Alan hears that one man has stopped hunting and started butchering meat instead since his wife is pregnant and he doesn't want to take risks. Alan immediately sees an opportunity. He brings the man to his house and shows him all the birds he's caught. The man is shocked a kid managed to capture so many. Alan admits he can't butcher them alone and offers a deal: 2 packs of meat for every bird prepared. The man happily agrees, though he asks if Alan is sure about paying that much. Alan smiles and says it's fine. After all, these birds aren't for food, he caught them to sell and earn the 50 gold coins needed to raise his family's status. Later, the hunting group heads out again, now with even more newbies. The goal is to eventually form 2 full teams and double the number of boars they catch, just like the Baron wants. Alan does wonder why the Baron is so obsessed with more boars when there's no food shortage. Before he can think too hard, another boar attacks. The same plan is used: control the boar, then let the newbies land finishing hits. They all level up again. But this time, Alan gets smart. He sends one of his summoned grasshoppers toward the boar, letting it get crushed. Since his summon technically took part in the fight, Alan gets the XP too and reaches level 3, though he feels a little bad for sacrificing it. 3 months later, Alan and the others are invited to the chief's mansion for a New Year celebration. On the way home, Krina is thrilled about all the candy they got. Back at home, their families throw their own party. Roden proudly praises Alan for his strategy, saying it made training newbies safe and effective, and next year's quota of 20 boars should be easy. Then Gerda notices a bottle behind Alan. Alan explains the chief personally gifted him some liquor. His condition? Beat him in a game. Desperate for a drink, they agree immediately. When they ask what game, Alan casually says, arm wrestling. Before starting, Alan adds one more rule: if he wins, they have to let him fight in future hunts. Roden doesn't like it, but he's sure he'll win anyway. First up is Gerda, who confidently believes there's no way a 7-year-old can beat him. Big mistake. Alan secretly stacks every strength buff he has through his summons. The match starts, and to everyone's shock, Alan slowly overpowers Gerda and slams his hand down. Gerda is speechless. Roden isn't shocked after everything Alan's done lately. He kind of expected it, but he's still confident the kid won't beat him too. After a short break, Roden locks arms with Alan. Just like before, Alan matches his strength at first. Alan ends up getting pushed back and losing the arm wrestling match. Keeping his promise, Alan hands over the liquor, but confidently declares that one day he'll be strong enough to beat his dad. Later that year, Alan finally levels up his summoning skill again and unlocks a whole set of E-rank summons. He's excited but knows he'll need to experiment to see what each one can do. Since E-rank creatures should give stronger buffs than the weaker ones, Alan is sure he can now beat Roden in arm wrestling. But before running off to challenge him, he notices something new in his grimoire, a feature called storage. Curious, Alan taps it and sees a black square on the page. He tosses a rock inside, and never hears it hit the bottom. When he reaches in, a strange mental image shows him exactly where the rock is. He starts throwing in more things and realizes something insane as long as it fits through the book. The space can hold unlimited items. Basically, he just unlocked infinite inventory. Alan immediately knows this is way too overpowered to be random. Skills this broken usually exist for a reason, which means he's definitely going to need it soon. Still, storage can wait. It's time to test his new summons. He tries summoning one, nothing happens. Turns out, E-rank monsters need E-rank magic stones to appear. Luckily, Alan already has some from killing rabbit monsters earlier. He grabs them, tries again, and still nothing. That's when he gets an idea. He throws the stones into the storage space and boom. Out comes a giant, beautiful butterfly, much bigger than expected. Before his bug-hating mom sees it, Alan hides it and heads to the fields, where he summons a terrifying saber-toothed tiger. He attempts to fuse the butterfly and tiger, but it only works after adding more magic stones, showing he'll need a lot of them going forward. At dinner, Roden tells him the village wiped out most rabbit monsters years ago because they were dangerous. Worried about running out of stones, Alan asks Palomas the next day and learns low-rank magic stones are basically useless and often scattered on the ground. So Alan starts scavenging and quickly collects enough to unlock all his new summons. He realizes his ability lets him cover every battle roll alone with endless beasts at his command. He's on his way to becoming unstoppable. Not long after, the village chief invites Roden, Gerda, and Alan over for dinner and drops some big news: the Baron himself is coming to visit next month to watch the boar hunt. Gerda is instantly annoyed since the Baron's constant quota increases have already made life hard enough. Roden doesn't mind the visit, but he does wonder why Alan was called in too. That's when the chief reveals the real reason he wants Alan to act as the Baron's personal guide. Alan isn't thrilled about babysitting a noble, but there's a problem. At his current pace, it'll take him nearly 10 years to earn commoner status by hunting birds alone. But if he impresses the Baron, he might get promoted much faster. So, with a deep sigh, he agrees. A month later, Baron Granville arrives with his daughter Cecil and Knight Captain Zenoff. During lunch, the Baron apologizes for last year's harsh meat quota, explaining it wasn't his idea. The king ordered it after being provoked by a sneaky viscount. The food soon arrives, and both the Baron and Cecil are blown away by how tasty it is. When the chief awkwardly can't name the dish, Alan steps in and explains it's freshly hunted bird meat he prepared himself. The Baron is impressed by Alan's manners and even mistakes him for the chief's son until Zenoff recognizes him as Roden's boy. When Cecil learns Alan is just a serf, she freaks out about a lowly peasant being in the guest hall. Her father quickly shuts that down, reminding her that serfs are valuable people, not dirt. She apologizes, but now she clearly has it out for Alan. The next morning, they head into the forest to watch the hunt from a safe tower Alan prepared. Cecil is amazed by the endless trees, having never seen a forest before. Soon, the warriors arrive wearing new armor made from last year's boar hides. Alan explains they turned the hides into tools and gear to make hunting safer and faster. Some unarmored men run into the forest to lure the boars out. It takes a while, but eventually a massive boar charges in. Using thick hide shields, they trap it, then stab from the sides while younger hunters help with long spears. The scene is so bloody that Cecil turns pale, and when Roden finishes the boar with a brutal strike, she faints on the spot. Before the cheering even ends, 2 more boars burst out of the forest. Zenoff prepares his knights to step in, but Alan calmly says they've got this. The team splits up and takes both boars down with ease. Alan realizes how far they've come before. Heavy taxes force them to trade away everything instead of improving their gear. Now, smart planning and better equipment make fights like this possible. Cecil wakes up just in time to see a fountain of blood from the last boar, and immediately passes out again. The Baron is shocked they killed 3 boars in one day. Alan casually tells him they already caught 7 before the visit, so only 10 more remain. The Baron is relieved the quota won't crush the village. Seeing the Baron in a good mood, Alan makes a request: permission to make more shields from boar hide. Granville sees no reason to say no, so he agrees to Alan's request and even praises him for doing such a great job as their guide. Just as they're about to leave, Cecil suddenly snaps at Alan, telling him not to get cocky just because her father complimented him. But right after that, she almost falls off her horse, completely destroying her tough girl moment. Not long later, Alan, Roden, and Gerda are invited to Granville's mansion. The Baron tells them he was so impressed by the hunt that he wants to reward them. Alan already knows something big is coming, and sure enough, Granville announces that Roden, Gerda, and their families are being promoted to commoner status. They're completely shocked, while Alan is beyond happy. Now he can keep his savings and finally travel freely, starting with a trip he dreams of to the White Dragon Mountains. Granville also adds that everyone who helped with hunts over the past 10 years will get the same promotion, and asks for a list of names. With how well things are going, he's confident the village will meet future quotas easily. Just as he's ready to leave, Granville remembers one last request from the king. The village is being used as a success story, so he wants to hear how the boar hunts began. Roden grows uncomfortable, so Gerda explains instead. 13 years ago, 100 poor settlers moved onto the land and worked non-stop to survive. But just as things improved, a giant boar destroyed all their winter food. With no weapons, they attacked it using farming tools and somehow won. The village survived because of it. Granville is impressed, but Gerda reveals the truth: Roden lost a close friend during that fight and has blamed himself ever since. Feeling bad for bringing up painful memories, Granville tells Roden he can make any request he wants. But Roden surprises everyone by asking for Alan to work at the Baron's estate. Inside, Alan panics. Working there means less freedom, not more. But Granville agrees and even promotes Alan straight to full servant instead of a simple helper. Cecil explodes in anger, until the butler calmly reminds her Alan is now a commoner, not a serf. Alan wants to refuse, but seeing how happy Roden is, he can't bring himself to say no. The next day, Alan prepares to leave. His family is proud but emotional, especially Karina. To cheer her up, Alan challenges her to one last spar. Everyone expects Karina to win, but Alan dumps all his stat boosts into speed and suddenly moves faster than ever. For the first time, he defeats her, holding his blade to her neck. Shocked, Karina can't believe she lost. Alan laughs and calls it a draw, promising a rematch someday. Soon it's time to go. The villagers say their goodbyes, and Dagora even gifts Alan a knife for the journey. His parents walk him to the village gate, reminding him this servant job is just the first step to a bigger future. The carriage arrives to take Alan, Cecil, and the Baron back to the city. The ride is painfully awkward. Cecil refuses to look at him, and Alan has no idea what to say. But one way or another, he's ready to face what comes next. So, Alan officially begins his new life as a servant at the Baron's estate. Since he's about the same age as Cecil, he's assigned the very important job of taking care of her, which basically means doing whatever she says, even when it makes zero sense. For example, she makes him lift her onto his shoulders so she can grab some fruit from a tree. She finally gets one, takes a bite, and immediately decides it tastes horrible. Naturally, this is Alan's fault for not magically knowing it would taste bad. Cecil isn't evil or anything, just the kind of person who can drain your energy before lunch. Of course, Alan can't complain. She then orders him to go to the market and buy her actually tasty fruit. Alan agrees, but before he leaves, something huge flies overhead, a giant ship in the sky. A flying ship. He just stands there staring like his brain has stopped working. He had no idea this world had magic airships. Cecil looks at him like he just discovered fire. "Is this your first time seeing one?" she asks. It absolutely is. So she shrugs, tells him not to forget the fruit, and leaves him to process his shock. The next morning, Alan wakes in his attic room, which, compared to his old place, is luxurious. His summoning grass gives off a refreshing scent, boosting his energy. Breakfast downstairs introduces him to the other servants, especially the head servant, Rickle. Rickle explains that Cecil's strictness is because Alan is a full servant, not a temporary hallboy, meaning he's technically part of the noble Granville family. Alan realizes why his father was thrilled about the position. Later, while helping serve breakfast, the Baron's wife praises Alan's manners despite his humble background, and the Baron is impressed by his capability, even though Alan isn't talentless, as they assume. Cecil immediately boasts about her wizard talent and her brother's swordsman talent. Her father immediately shuts that down. He warns her not to talk about talents in front of her younger brother, Thomas. Thomas doesn't have a talent, and it's a sensitive topic for him. Hearing Cecil brag makes him tear up. Cecil feels bad for about 3 seconds, and then somehow blames Alan for the situation. Later that afternoon, Alan finally gets some free time. He heads straight into town. His number one goal, the Adventurers Guild. He walks up to the receptionist and asks to register. She smiles and asks his age. "I'm 8, he says proudly. She politely crushes his dreams. The minimum age is 12. Alan is devastated. 4 more years of being Cecil's personal assistant. Tragic. Since he can't register, he studies the notice board instead. There are bounties posted for monsters of all ranks. While he's reading, an adventurer named Raven walks up and tells him this isn't a place for kids. Alan apologizes and prepares to leave, but first, he asks how the bounties are organized. Raven explains that monsters get stronger the farther you travel from the city. The strongest ones live near White Dragon Mountain. There's even an old bounty still posted for the White Dragon itself. Alan asks why no one has claimed it, considering how high the reward is. Raven laughs. The dragon is simply too strong. However, the area is rich in mithril, so people keep taking mining requests there, and the dragon bounty keeps increasing. That's all the information Alan needs. He thanks Raven and leaves. He may not be allowed to register as an adventurer yet, but no one said he can't fight monsters. It's his day off, after all. He runs to the city gate, but is stopped by a guard. Normally, you can't just stroll out of the city. However, since Alan is technically part of the Granville family, he shows their seal as identification. That clears things up immediately. The gates open. Alan enters the forest cautiously, stopping a few kilometers in where D-rank monsters roam. He summons 6 intelligent hawks to scout and tests his tiger summon, which can follow simple commands but isn't very smart. One hawk reports a group of goblins, but they spot Alan first and charge. He quickly summons 10 tigers to surround them and a butterfly to cast a sleep spell, which works about 80% of the time. Once the goblins grow drowsy, the tigers wipe them out. Goblins give less XP than boarwoods, but are faster to defeat, so Alan farms them all day, defeating around 80 and earning 16,000 XP, leveling up twice. He also learns dark magic stones can't create E-rank summons, despite being more valuable. At night, he sends the hawks to scout again, but they refuse to move. He realizes hawks can't see well in the dark, ruining his plan to use them to navigate home. With no night vision and no GPS birds, Alan stumbles through the forest and barely makes it back to the city. A month later, Alan visits a blacksmith and commissions 3 solid metal balls. He wants to improve his rock-throwing skill, and metal ammo sounds way better than pebbles. After paying, he stores them inside his grimoire. Over the past month, he has gone hunting 4 times. Thanks to his efficient goblin farming, he has reached level 12. Finally, real progress. That night, when he returns to the Granville estate, Sebas corners him and says the Baron wants to see him. No pressure. Alan goes to the Baron's office. Instead of scolding him, the Baron praises him. Everyone in the mansion has good things to say about Alan. However, there's a small concern. The Baron has heard that Alan leaves early on his days off and comes back very late. He makes it clear Alan isn't in trouble. He's free to use his days off however he wants. The Baron just wants to know what he's doing. Alan decides to be honest. He explains that he's been hunting in the forest. As the son of Roden, a hunter, it feels natural to him. The Baron nods. Fair enough. Alan is allowed to continue hunting, but there's one condition. Sebas assumes Alan is only hunting harmless E-rank rabbits. He warns Alan not to sell any meat to local butchers. If people found out a servant of the Granville family was doing that, it could cause gossip. Instead, the estate offers to buy any meat he brings back for 1 silver coin per bundle. That's actually higher than the market rate. Alan is thrilled. Up until now, he's been throwing the meat away. Now he can level up and make money. That's called efficiency. 6 months later, Alan is on one of his weekly hunts. Today's goal, at least 100 goblins and a few horned rabbits. Suddenly, one of his hawks returns. He assumes it found monsters. Then all the other hawks come back too. And they're acting strange. That's not normal. Alan follows the noise and finds Raven and his party surrounded by goblins. Raven is already unconscious, and Rita is the only one still fighting. Alan steps in, throwing metal balls at the goblins. They hit harder than stones, but can't one-shot, and he only has 3. He avoids using his summoning powers to keep them secret, so he fights head-on. At level 12, D-rank goblins are no longer a challenge. He quickly defeats several, far faster than Rita, and clears the area. The party is safe, but Raven may not survive. Rita urges Melly to heal him, but she's out of mana, and Raven won't make it back to town. Alan quietly offers special healing grass created by one of his summons. He applies it, and Raven's wound fully heals. Raven wakes up, and the team gratefully promises to repay him for the rare herb. Alan just wants to stay low profile, but he does ask for one favor: 100 E-rank magic stones. Though they're nearly worthless, Raven agrees to gather them by next week. A few days later, Alan returns to assisting Cecil. While lifting her to grab jam for cookies to celebrate her brother Mihai's return, Alan is so shocked by the news that he loses balance. A little while later, the family is enjoying lunch together, and Granville is seriously impressed. The food tastes amazing. Cecil proudly explains that it was made using horned rabbits Alan hunted himself. Granville nods in approval. Of course Alan is skilled, he's Rodin's son after all. Talent runs in the blood. Then Granville casually mentions that Kren Village successfully met its yearly quota of 20 boars. Alan isn't surprised. He never doubted they could do it. But Thomas suddenly asks an important question. If the quota was met, why haven't we eaten any boar meat this year? Everyone pauses. Boar meat used to be the highlight of winter meals. But this year, nothing. Alan quickly guesses the reason. The king must have increased the quota, so all the meat was probably sent to the capital instead. Makes sense, politically. Not great for dinner though. Then Thomas, being Thomas, boldly requests, "Next time, can you hunt a white deer?" The entire family immediately scolds him. A white deer isn't some backyard rabbit. It's dangerous. Rare, definitely not a casual lunch order. But Alan? He agrees instantly. He's been bored lately anyway. A new challenge sounds fun. And if a white deer is around C rank, it should be easy. The next day, Alan heads into the snowy forest. First, he digs a pit trap. Then he runs off to track his target. When he finally spots the white deer, he summons 4 frogs as bait. Using their provoke skill, the frogs annoy the deer until it charges at them. Right before it hits Poof, Alan dismisses the frogs. He keeps repeating this trick, slowly guiding the furious deer exactly where he wants it, straight into the pit. And once it's trapped, game over. An hour later, chaos erupts at the mansion gates. A giant white deer has appeared out of nowhere. The staff prepares to attack, until a voice comes from underneath it. Alan rolls out from under the massive corpse. Yes, killing it was easy. No, carrying it home alone was not fun. He proudly announces he hunted it for Thomas. The whole family rushes out. Thomas is thrilled they're having deer meat for New Year's. Granville, however, is stunned. An 8-year-old defeating a C-rank monster alone. Now he's seriously questioning that talentless label. Reassessment is definitely happening soon. Not long after, Alan is called into a meeting with Sibis. Good news, he's being promoted to huntsman. His duties? Hunt food for the household and protect everyone during monster attacks. His pay? 100 silver coins a month, double his current salary. Sounds amazing, right? Except Alan quickly realizes something. That deer alone was worth more than 100 silver. Paying him a monthly salary is way cheaper than buying strong monsters from him directly. clever. Still, Alan doesn't mind. As long as he can hunt freely, he's happy. Then Sibis drops the bad news. He still has to serve Cecil, and he can only hunt once a week. Alan dies a little inside, but he keeps smiling. Complaining would be rude. Later, Alan accompanies Cecil to the port to welcome her brother Mihai from the Royal Academy. It's Alan's first time seeing an airship, but Cecil only cares about hugging her brother and scolding him for missing last summer. Alan offers to carry Mihai's luggage and is introduced as Cecil's servant. Mihai immediately notices Alan's talent, which quietly relieves him. Finally, someone perceptive and mature. Watching the siblings bond makes Alan think of his own family. After another successful hunt, Alan returns with top-tier ingredients, delighting the chefs. In the garden, he sees Mihai sparring with Zenov. Though only 14, Mihai shows impressive skill from his academy training, but Zenov still wins due to the strength gap. Afterward, Mihai asks Alan to spar. Granville approves. Zenov hands Alan a mithril sword. For the first time, Alan holds one. The duel begins. At first, Alan tries to hold back. He doesn't want to hurt Mihai. Then their swords clash, and Alan realizes something. Mihai is strong. Really strong. Years of structured academy training make a massive difference. Even if their raw strength is similar, Alan's swordsmanship is still beginner level. Experience wins. The duel ends. Mihai takes the victory. Everyone praises him again, though Cecil makes sure to compliment Alan for lasting as long as he did. When Thomas asks how Mihai got so strong, Mihai explains he had to clear a dungeon as a summer assignment last year. Suddenly, Cecil understands why he didn't come home. She feels bad for complaining earlier. Alan, meanwhile, is thinking about how incredible that academy training must be. Before leaving, Alan asks Mihai to spar again next summer. Mihai happily agrees and shakes his hand, asking him to take care of Cecil until then. Alan agrees. Internally, he's calculating the fastest way to quit this job without dishonoring his father. Viscount Carnell visits Granville and casually mocks the territory as a backwater, though both men hide centuries of rivalry behind polite smiles. Their lands sit on opposite sides of White Dragon Mountain, rich in mithril. A white dragon currently roosts on Granville's side, blocking their mines and crippling their economy, while Carnell prospers. The dragon switches sides roughly every 100 years, constantly flipping the balance of power. During dinner, Carnell praises what he thinks is rare boar meat prepared by Alan, but it's just horned rabbit, and he can't tell the difference. Carnell reveals he came because his eldest daughter was recently appraised and declared talentless. Instead of bragging, it's humiliation. He mockingly notes that 2 of Granville's 3 children have talents, while Granville fires back that Carnell also has a gifted son. The exchange is quiet political warfare. After Carnell leaves, Alan realizes noble life isn't glamorous, it's ruthless. On his day off, Alan seeks advice about hunting C-rank monsters. Having killed over 10,000 D-rank goblins, he wants stronger prey. He soon finds a C-rank orc and defeats it cleanly with summoned tigers. But a C-rank armored ant is a different story. Its shell shrugs off tiger claws. Using sleep butterflies, he flips it to target its softer underside, barely cracking the shell before it wakes. After desperate repeated strikes, he finally wins, collapsing in relief. Same rank, vastly different difficulty. The ant seems almost immune to physical attacks, making Alan wonder if magic would have been easier, especially with his high intelligence stat. So he joins Cecil's magic class. A magic orb should glow if he has talent. It doesn't. No matter how hard he focuses, nothing. Alan is officially magicless. That realization stings more than the ant fight. One evening, while the family is having dinner, Rickle suddenly rushes in with urgent news. A terrifying murder gulch has been spotted nearby and will reach the southern gate in less than 2 hours. The problem is that Zenov and his knights are away on a monster hunting mission and won't return for 2 days. Realizing the city has no defenders, Granville sends Rickle to the Adventurers Guild to post an emergency quest and gather fighters. Since the Murder Gulch is a B-rank monster, far too strong for local adventurers, Alan volunteers to stall it himself. However, he had already used most of his MP earlier while farming experience, so he needs time for his mana to recover. While heading through the city, Alan overhears a desperate man begging an adventurer to save his wife and daughter. Their carriage is stuck, and the Murder Gulch is currently chewing on it. Alan quickly throws an iron ball at the monster's eye, drawing its attention away from the family, but now the monster is fully focused on him. Alan immediately runs, planning to lure it away from the city toward the mountain. Once his MP recovers, he summons butterflies to boost his speed and attempts to put the monster to sleep with their magic. Unfortunately, the Murder Gulch resists the spell and swats the butterflies away. The chase continues for hours until Alan finally hides under some trees and briefly loses the monster. Exhausted and out of options, he realizes he isn't strong enough to defeat it and has already burned several magic stones just to survive. Still, he feels relieved knowing he at least led it far away from the city. But just as he prepares to leave, the Murder Gulch finds him again. For 3 straight days, Alan runs day and night while the monster relentlessly pursues him. Eventually, he manages to shake it off and stagger back to the city, completely exhausted. The guards recognize him as the hero who lured the monster away and catch him before he collapses. When Alan wakes up, he's back at the mansion being cared for by Cecil and Sebas. Cecil scolds him for making everyone worry, while Sebas praises his bravery and tells him Granville wants to see him once he recovers. When Alan meets Granville, he apologizes for not being strong enough to defeat the monster. Granville immediately dismisses that, saying Alan's actions saved the city from massive casualties. As a reward, Granville gives Alan 10 gold coins, and the family he rescued gives him another 10 gold coins in gratitude. With the money, Alan finally buys a mithril sword. With his new weapon, he easily defeats an armored spider monster, slipping the blade through gaps in its armor to retrieve its magic stone. Later, Alan experiments with his summons by calling 3 hawks. 2 that were stored in the grimoire can correctly identify a fruit hidden inside a bag, showing they share knowledge while inside the grimoire. However, the 3rd hawk that stayed outside has no idea what's inside, proving the shared information only works for stored summons. In early March, Cecil's brother Mihai finally gives Alan the rematch he wanted. Despite Alan becoming stronger after hunting many C-rank monsters, Mihai's swordsmanship is still far superior, and Alan loses again. During lunch afterward, Mihai hears about Alan's encounter with the Murder Gulch. Alan downplays it, saying he mostly ran away, but Mihai is still amazed he survived against a B-rank monster. Just then, a knight suddenly bursts into the dining room again, making Alan nervous, remembering how chaotic the last time was. But this time, the knight brings good news. The white dragon that had been nesting on the nearby mountain has finally started migrating toward Cardinal's territory. This means the mithril mines on the mountain can finally be used again. Granville is overjoyed. Reopening those mines could bring a massive economic boom to the region. He immediately wants to send knights to inspect them. However, Zenov advises caution. First, they should confirm where the dragon plans to build its new nest before making any moves. Granville agrees. Then Mihai casually asks a question. If they're planning to reopen the mines, someone will need to clear all the monsters between the city and the mountain. And if that's the case, he'd be more than happy to help. After all, he still has some free time and he could use a little excitement. However, Zenov quickly shuts Mihai's idea down. He says it's far too risky. If the white dragon suddenly decides to come back during the hunt, Mihai could end up in serious trouble. Mihai understands the concern and calmly agrees to drop the idea. Alan, on the other hand, has a completely different problem. He realizes that once the knights clear all the monsters between the city and the mithril mines, his favorite XP farming spot will disappear, and Alan is not ready to lose his leveling ground just yet. So he decides to squeeze out as much experience as possible before that happens. At the first opportunity, Alan heads deep into the forest. His summoning skill recently reached level 5, and he's excited to test the new abilities he unlocked. One of those abilities is called Share. To try it out, Alan summons a hawk and activates the skill. Suddenly, something incredible happens. He can see through the hawk's eyes while still seeing through his own. Curious, he tells the hawk to fly higher into the sky. As the bird flies higher, Alan gets a stunning aerial view of the entire forest. Combined with the hawk's eagle eye ability, this makes scouting extremely effective. Curious about the limits of this skill, Alan summons 3 more hawks and links his senses with them. Now he can see through 4 different viewpoints at once, along with his own, like watching a giant split screen. Wanting to push the limit further, he summons a tiger and links to it as well. But when he tries adding another tiger, a sharp headache hits him, forcing him to cancel the skill. From this, Alan realizes 5 viewpoints is his current limit. Since his intelligence stat is around 1000, he estimates that each extra viewpoint requires roughly 200 intelligence. To test the theory, Alan summons an owl, which boosts his intelligence to over 1200, and tries again. This time he successfully handles 6 viewpoints without pain. This leads Alan to a clever idea. If he can watch through his summons and give them orders remotely, they can hunt monsters while he stays safe. Essentially, he can farm XP without fighting himself. To test it, Alan sends his summons to attack a group of armored ants, and they quickly defeat them, proving the strategy works. Before leaving, Alan gives them a strict rule: never attack human adventurers, even if they're attacked first. Then another idea strikes him. Using a bird, Alan flies all the way to Karina village and watches from the sky. He sees everyone doing well: Karina training, Din working in the fields, and his mother braiding his little sister's hair. Relieved to see his family safe, Alan quietly asks the bird to drop a gold coin for them before flying away. 6 months pass, and progress at the Mythel mines is slower than expected. Xenof reports to Granville that the mines were abandoned for so long that they've been completely overrun by monsters. The nearby villages that once refined the ore have also turned into monster nests. Because of this, Xenof estimates it will take at least 3 years to fully reclaim everything. Granville is shocked and pushes him to speed things up. Alan, who overhears the conversation, finds Granville's urgency suspicious. Granville then asks about Carnell, and Xenof explains that Carnell tried to continue mining even after the dragon returned to the area. The result was disastrous. The dragon spotted the miners and burned the entire crew to ash, making the operation impossible for now. Granville warns Xenof to stay alert in case Carnell tries something reckless again. Alan doesn't care much about the political drama. For the past 6 months, he has been grinding XP with his monsters non-stop. His goal is to become an adventurer when he turns 12, though that's still 2 years away, so he keeps farming monsters before the knights clear them out first. One day he finds a goblin-infested village. Normally he leaves goblin camps alive so they can respawn for easy XP, but after remembering how dangerous goblins are, he decides to wipe them out completely. Alan summons his bears to block every exit and traps the goblins inside. Chaos breaks out as the bears slaughter them. When the Goblin King appears, what should be a boss battle ends quickly because Alan's team is far overleveled. Within minutes every goblin is dead, and Alan earns nearly 50,000 XP, deciding to destroy every goblin camp in the forest. Later, Mai graduates from the academy and returns home. Instead of greeting everyone, he immediately challenges Alan to a no-holds-barred duel. Alan boosts his stats into speed and strength and rushes him, surprising Mai with how much he has improved. However, Mai still has superior skill and experience, and after a tough exchange he disarms Alan and wins again. When Alan tries to congratulate him, Mai quietly walks past and speaks to Granville instead. Granville praises him as the pride of the family, but Mai then gathers Cecil and Thomas and reveals troubling news. As a noble, he must now fulfill a mysterious duty. He isn't allowed to explain it, only that he will return in 3 years. Cecil is heartbroken since she just got him back. Alan doesn't fully understand, but from everyone's reaction it sounds like something dangerous that noble children are forced to do. The next day, before leaving, Mai privately asks Alan to look after Cecil while he's gone. Alan agrees, and Mai departs. Life returns to normal. A year later, Alan has nearly wiped out every goblin camp and begins targeting orc camps instead. Orcs are stronger, but his summons handle them easily until a spell suddenly flies toward him. Alan orders his knight summons to block it and realizes something strange. Orcs aren't supposed to use magic. He spots 3 orc mages with scepters, whose fireballs deal serious damage. Acting quickly, Alan throws a steel ball with full force, instantly blowing one mage's head apart. The other 2 hide behind rocks, proving they're smarter than expected. One of them runs to warn the Orc King, while the rest of the orc army charges at Alan. Luckily, Alan has plenty of magic stones from his goblin hunts, enough to summon up to 20,000 bears if needed, so he's confident he can win. But then the Orc King appears. This B-rank monster is far stronger than anything Alan has faced. When Alan sends 2 bears to attack, the Orc King cuts them down instantly with a single strike. Alan summons more bears to overwhelm it, but the Orc King keeps slaughtering them before they can even attack, proving this fight is on a completely different level. Meanwhile, the orc mages continue launching fireballs. One powerful blast destroys Alan's night summons and sends him flying backward, costing him a huge chunk of HP. He quickly drinks a healing potion and tries to think of a solution. But no matter how much he thinks about it, none of his summons can defeat the Orc King. For the first time, Alan is completely out of options. Just as he starts considering running away, Xenoph suddenly appears beside him. He heard the noise and came to investigate. Alan quickly despawns his summons so Xenoph won't see them, though that probably makes things even more suspicious. Still, Xenoph doesn't question it. Instead, he calmly says he'll handle the Orc King himself and orders Vice Captain Lebron to deal with the Orc mages. The Orc King swings at Xenoph with enormous force, but Xenoph effortlessly parries the attack like it's nothing. Alan is stunned watching him fight. According to Lebron, this is barely a warm-up for Xenoph, who is known as an absolute powerhouse. Lebron then charges forward and unleashes a powerful piercing attack that leaves one of the mages looking like Toji after meeting the Honored One. He quickly eliminates the remaining mages and the rest of the orc soldiers. Meanwhile, Xenoph finishes the Orc King in style, slicing it clean in half within seconds. Later that night at camp, Xenoph casually mentions that ever since Alan became a servant at the Granville estate, mysterious monster corpses have been appearing all over the forest. It wasn't hard to guess who was responsible. Looking at Alan's abilities, Xenoph concludes that Alan clearly isn't talentless after all. Alan realizes his secret is basically exposed, especially when Xenoph directly asks if controlling those monsters is his special ability. There's no point denying it now, but Alan still avoids explaining the full truth. Sometime later, back at the mansion, a group of royal messengers arrives. Everyone gathers to see what news they've brought. But to Granville's horror, the messengers hand him Mai's diary and calmly announce that his son is dead. Granville can't believe it. It has only been 6 months since Mai left. The only explanation he can think of is that his son was sent out as cannon fodder because their family is a low-ranking noble house. The messengers don't respond. They simply leave, saying they have more tragic news to deliver to other families. The entire mansion falls into mourning. Everyone loved Mai, and the thought that a 15-year-old was forced into such a cruel fate is devastating. But this is the harsh tradition of the kingdom. Every so often, noble families must offer one of their gifted children for service, and many of them never return. Cecil can't accept this reality. While no one is watching, she quietly climbs out of her window and runs away. Soon the entire mansion is in chaos searching for her. And now Alan must find Cecil before something terrible happens. Cecil finally makes it out into the city, but she's been running for so long that her legs basically quit on her. Exhausted, she drops to the ground and pulls out the ribbon Mihai gave her, still refusing to accept that her brother is gone. Of course, she's not alone for long. One of Alan's owls spots her, and soon enough, Alan shows up. Cecil immediately assumes he's there to drag her back home, but surprisingly, he just sits beside her and says he'll wait until she feels better. No pressure, no lectures. At first, Cecil snaps at him, telling him to leave her alone. But then her stomach betrays her with the loudest growl ever. Alan casually pulls out food like a walking convenience store, and honestly, Cecil is too hungry and heartbroken to question it. She starts eating, and then the tears hit. As she remembers Mihai's final letter, it gets heavy. He knew he might die. He was scared, really scared, but he still chose to go, not because he had to, but because he wanted to face his own weakness. And now Cecil realizes, one day, she might have to face that same fate. Seeing how shaken she is, Alan suddenly drops a wild idea. Let's just run away. No duties, no academy, just freedom. Cecil brushes it off at first, she still has responsibilities, after all. But Alan hits her with a simple truth. The academy is just a school. She can choose not to go. And that's when it clicks she does have a choice. Just like Mihai did. And Mihai didn't choose duty out of obligation, he chose it for himself. That's why he had no regrets. That realization changes everything. Cecil finally stands up well, emotionally at least, and says she's ready to go home. Physically though? Yeah, not happening. Her legs are done. So she tells Alan to carry her. He's mildly annoyed, but still does it anyway. On the way back, she thanks him. He shrugs it off like it's nothing. When they return, her parents rush over in full panic mode. Her father even says he can pull some strings, maybe bribe the royal family to get her out of her noble duty entirely. But Cecil surprises everyone. She looks them straight in the eye and says she won't run away. When the time comes, she'll face her duty by choice. Her parents are shocked, but they respect it. Fast forward 6 months, and things are mostly back to normal. Alan's out hunting again, clearing monsters like it's just another Tuesday. Thanks to him, the Mithril mines are finally back in business. But there's still tension because Carnell might not take this loss quietly. Now that the forest is mostly safe, Alan decides to aim higher literally and heads up the mountain. There, he finds a nightmare, an ant colony with thousands of monsters and a B-rank queen. Charging in would be suicide, so Alan plays it smart. He camps the entrance, picks off ants one by one, and then sends his owl scouts inside to map the entire tunnel system like a living GPS. After hours of searching, right when he's about to give up, jackpot, his owls find the queen. Alan rolls up with his summoned army and starts the boss fight. The soldier ants, easy. The queen, not so much. She one-shots his bears, but Alan just keeps summoning more like he's spamming respawns. Slowly but surely, the damage stacks up, and the queen finally goes down. Victory. Too bad it's already night, so Alan camps in the cave. But before sleeping, he notices something shiny mithril. The next day, he returns home carrying proof of his insane achievement. At first, no one believes him taking down a whole colony, and a queen sounds ridiculous. But when he shows the mithril, everyone realizes he actually went into the White Mountains. Now they're impressed. Granville rewards him with 30% mining rights to the new vein, basically meaning future Alan is going to be rich without even trying. Time passes, Alan turns 12, and life is looking pretty good, until trouble comes knocking again. A royal messenger arrives with Carnell. And yeah, it's bad. They bring a contract forcing Granville to share the mithril profits for the next 100 years. Basically, give us half your money or else. Granville refuses to sign without consulting the king, which makes the messenger furious. You'd think that's the end of it. It's not. Just days later, chaos erupts. Mercenaries break into the mansion to kidnap Cecil. Alan rushes in and attacks, but it's not a fair fight. One of the kidnappers uses sleeping gas, and Alan drops instantly. When he wakes up, he's tied up right next to Cecil. Not ideal, but also kind of convenient. The kidnappers don't know about his summoning powers, so Alan quietly summons birds to scout the area. That's when he discovers the truth: they're on a luxury magic airship. And the masterminds, Carnell and the royal messenger, casually drinking and laughing. Even worse, they're planning to threaten Granville by cutting off Cecil's hand if he refuses to cooperate. Yeah, Alan is done being calm. Back in the room, Cecil wakes up and starts panicking. The kidnappers get annoyed and are about to hit her. Big mistake. Alan finally makes his move. He summons a butterfly, puts one kidnapper to sleep, breaks free from his ropes, and gets ready to take them all down. The kidnappers rush him, but surprise, he summons a bunch of creatures, completely catching them off guard. While they're busy panicking, Alan calmly knocks them all out like it's just another Tuesday. He checks on Cecilia, but of course, things can't stay easy. The boss walks in. He's actually impressed, but not enough to let Alan leave. In a blink, the guy appears right in front of Alan and boom, kicks him so hard he flies into a wall, coughing up blood. Alan is stunned. Did this guy just teleport? No time to think. Alan quickly uses a healing herb while the leader casually explains, "Yeah, that was my skill. Not that it matters. You're about to die anyway." Suddenly, the leader hears Cardinal shouting. He freezes, only to realize it's just Alan's parrot trolling him. While he's distracted, Alan traps him with spider silk, grabs Cecilia, and runs. He even spawns 2 knights to block the door, buying himself a few precious seconds. Now comes the crazy part. They're 100 meters in the air. Cecilia already knows what Alan is thinking, and she hates it. Alan just shrugs and says, "It'll probably be fine," famous last words energy, and jumps out the window with her. They crash down hard. Cecilia, totally fine. Alan, legs completely destroyed. No problem, though. He pops some healing herbs like snacks and recovers quickly. He helps Cecilia up, gives her a healing leaf, and says it's time to go home. She has a lot of questions, but yeah, no time for that. They're still in enemy territory, and Dagra is definitely coming. So Alan carries her and starts running. At first, she refuses to hold him properly because embarrassment. But once he starts sprinting like a monster, she grabs on for dear life. While running, Alan sends out owls to scout, and yep, bad news. Dagra is already on their trail and somehow heading straight toward them. Alan tests a theory by zigzagging through alleys, but Dagra copies the exact path. Conclusion? He's tracking footprints. So Alan switches tactics. He jumps onto rooftops. No footprints, no tracking. Simple and smart. Cecilia asks why he doesn't just fight Dagra. Alan basically says, "Bad matchup. Also, I'm carrying you." So yeah, running is smarter. They escape the city and head toward Granville territory. To stay untraceable, Alan literally creates floating knights and hops across their shields so he doesn't touch the ground. Yeah, this guy is built different. After camping for the night, Cecilia finally asks why he hid his powers all this time. Alan explains that being talented just brings trouble, and after what happened to Mihai, she understands. Next day, they continue, but Dagra isn't giving up. He starts searching in spirals, slowly closing in. They reach a guard post, and things look safe until Alan's hawk reports the worst. Dagra found the trail. Alan immediately runs again. Cecilia suggests fighting with the guards, but Alan shuts that down. Dagra would wipe them out easily. Cecilia feels guilty and tells him to leave her behind. But Alan refuses. "Yeah, you're annoying sometimes, but I'm not leaving you." That hits. They keep running through the night, almost home until an old nightmare appears. The Murder Gulch. It remembers Alan and wants revenge. Running isn't an option anymore. So Alan fights. He summons everything he has and targets its weak spot, but the monster adapts and grabs him. It starts crushing him, and Alan survives only by constantly healing. Then it eats him. Cecilia is horrified. But inside the monster, Alan switches all his stats to defense so the teeth can't crush him. Then he stabs its remaining eye from the inside and kills it. Absolute savage move. Cecilia runs to him in tears, but once again no time to relax. Dagra finally catches up. He instantly slams Alan to the ground and prepares to kill him. Alan still can't counter that teleport skill. Things look hopeless, until Cecilia steps up. She launches a fireball. Even Dagra is surprised, but he retaliates and smacks her hard. He spares her only because he needs her alive. Big mistake. Now Alan is furious. He starts trash-talking Dagra, calling him a coward who ran from war and now bullies kids. It works. Dagra loses control and focuses only on beating Alan. Exactly as planned. Because backup arrives. Zinov. Dagra attacks him, but his blade does nothing. Zinov casually counters and splits Dagra in half along with everything behind him. Fight over. Zinov escorts them home, where everyone is relieved to see Cecilia safe. Later, Alan reveals the truth. Cardinal planned everything to steal Granville's mining rights by using Cecilia as a hostage. Granville is furious and wants to report it immediately, but Alan stops him. He suggests something smarter and darker. Use the mining rights as leverage to force a full investigation, basically, bribe the system to expose everyone, including the royal messenger. Granville is shocked, but realizes Alan is right. Sometimes you have to get your hands dirty. In the end, the plan works. The messenger is fired and Cardinal's territory is taken over. After that, Alan and Cecilia learn a hidden truth. The world isn't peaceful. A demon lord appeared over a century ago and nearly destroyed everything. Even now, war continues and nobles with talent must serve in the army for 3 years with a terrifying death rate. Then comes the real problem. Cecilia can't escape the draft. Granville asks Alan for a favor: protect her at the academy and on the battlefield. He even offers 600 gold. Alan hesitates. It's a huge responsibility. But he also knows this is his chance to grow stronger. So he accepts. And just like that, Alan sets his goal: protect Cecilia, and one day, defeat the Demon Lord. After winter comes to an end, Mash and Mula are disappointed because Chappie doesn't bring another letter from Alan. They assume he's just too busy to write until Alan casually walks up to the house like it's no big deal. The whole family rushes outside, staring at him in complete shock before happily welcoming him home. During dinner, Alan smiles as he notices how much Mash and Mula have grown. However, Mula acts strangely shy around him, leaving Alan confused. Rodden laughs and explains that she was only a year old when Alan left, so she barely remembers him. Alan is surprised for a second, but quickly realizes it makes sense since most of their conversations have only been through Chappie and his letters. Teresa thanks Alan for faithfully sending money home every month, though she worries he isn't saving enough for himself. Alan simply reassures her that money is no longer a problem. He's no longer working as a servant and is now an honored guest at the Granville estate. On top of that, he'll be leaving for the Academy City in April. Before anyone can recover from that news, Alan casually places a pouch containing 100 gold coins on the table for his family's expenses. His parents immediately refuse, afraid he'll need it himself. But Alan just smiles and reveals he still has another 600 gold coins saved. At that point, everyone realizes their little boy has somehow become the richest person in the room. When it's time for Alan to leave, Mula nervously walks over and asks if he's really the big brother who always sent her letters. After Alan confirms it with a smile, she throws her arms around him in a warm hug. The rest of the family quickly joins in, turning his farewell into one big family group hug. After returning to the Granville estate, Cecile is baffled to find Alan sweeping the floors even though he's supposed to be their honored guest. Alan simply says he wants to help out before leaving for the academy. Cecile then asks if he's really determined to attend the academy and fight in the coming war, even though he isn't obligated by noble duty. Alan calmly replies that it doesn't matter because protecting the kingdom is a responsibility he chose for himself. Not long afterward, Kirina and Dogora arrive, and Alan introduces them to Cecile. He explains that the 3 of them will be taking the academy entrance exam together in just 3 days. Later that evening, Granville welcomes the 2 newcomers and tells them to treat the mansion like their own home. Dagora and Kirina take that invitation very seriously by immediately attacking the dinner table, leaving everyone else watching them disappear behind mountains of food. After settling into their rooms, Kirina and Dagora excitedly imagine what academy life will be like. Meanwhile, Cecile quietly asks Alan if they should tell them about the war. Alan decides it's better to wait until it's absolutely necessary. Kirina is expected to inherit the title of Baron after graduating, meaning she'll eventually have the same duty as every other noble. Dagora's future is still uncertain and will depend on how well he performs at the academy. The following morning, the 4 of them set off for the academy while the entire Granville household gathers to see them off. Before long, they arrive at Ratash Academy, where they're stunned by the massive crowd of hopeful students. Looking around at the sea of applicants, they quickly realize getting into the academy won't be nearly as easy as they thought. Before the real entrance exam begins, every applicant has to go through an appraisal ceremony. Kirina has no idea what that is, so Alan explains it's the same ceremony everyone takes when they turn 5 to measure their natural abilities. Dogora goes first, and his stats are decent, but he's disappointed that they haven't improved much over the years. Kirina is next, and the crystal ball shines brightly. The examiner immediately recognizes her incredible talent with the sword and happily welcomes the future Sword Lord. Cecile follows, and her results are just as impressive. especially her S-rank intelligence, a trait that only the greatest mages possess. Then it's Alan's turn. The crystal ball suddenly explodes with light, making everyone expect a legendary genius. Instead, the results leave the entire hall speechless. Every one of Alan's stats is ranked E. Cecile immediately protests because she knows this is the same guy who defeated a powerful monster by himself. Alan, however, stays completely calm and tells her not to make a big deal out of it. The commotion quickly catches the attention of two important figures. One is the Academy's elf headmaster, while the other is the legendary hero, Helmios. After examining Alan himself, Helmios discovers the truth. Alan's abilities are actually incredible, but because he has almost no magical energy, the appraisal incorrectly rates him as weak. Relieved, Cecile asks if Alan can still take the magic exam. Helmios agrees, but only if Alan first shows everyone what his summoner magic can do. Before revealing anything, Alan decides to satisfy his own curiosity first and asks Helmios to demonstrate his stats. The legendary hero casually places his hand on the crystal, revealing A and S ranks almost across the board. As expected from someone called a hero, Alan then takes his turn and simply summons a tiny mouse. Even though it doesn't look flashy, the crowd is still impressed because summoners are extremely rare. With that settled, the group heads to the written exam. When the results are announced, everyone passes. Alan finishes with the highest score, while Kurina barely sneaks through by the skin of her teeth. Their next stop is the Adventurers Guild to receive their guild cards. After explaining how dungeon exploration works, the receptionist asks if they need anything else. Alan casually requests 10,000 D rank magic stones and pays 100 gold coins without even blinking. The receptionist somehow keeps a straight face and tells him to come back in a week. Once their guild cards are ready, she suggests they officially form a party together. Alan immediately comes up with the name No Life Gamers. Nobody has the slightest idea what that means, so Alan confidently explains that it represents people who dedicate themselves completely to becoming stronger. It sounds cool enough, so everyone agrees without asking any more questions. The group then moves into their shared house. Once everyone is settled, Alan finally tells Kurina and Dogora about the coming war and the responsibility nobles have to fight against the Demon Lord. Kurina thinks it actually sounds exciting. Dogora isn't nearly as enthusiastic after hearing that half the soldiers never return alive. Still, after realizing that succeeding could earn him a rank even higher than a knight, he decides the risk is worth it. At that exact moment, Alan's grimoire suddenly glows and announces that Kurina and Dogora have officially become members of his party. What surprises Alan even more is that everyone else can actually see the grimoire too, proving it isn't invisible after all. Kurina then asks the obvious question: how are they supposed to defeat the Demon Lord? Alan explains that they'll need to conquer dungeons, become stronger, and collect better equipment along the way. He also reveals his biggest handicap. Thanks to Hell Mode, his skills level up 100 times slower than everyone else's, which is why he needs mountains of magic stones just to keep progressing. He's also hoping to find an MP recovery ring somewhere inside a dungeon because it would make training much easier. The next day, the group meets their homeroom teacher, Carla. Alan can tell almost immediately that he's one of the rare teachers who actually cares about his students. Carla reminds everyone to study hard, warns that any score below 40 is an automatic failure, and tells them to prepare for the major exams held every July and February. Students spend 4 days each week in class and get 2 days off. Afternoon lessons are divided by magic type, but since nobody really knows how to teach summoning magic, Alan is given free time instead. Even so, he plans to sit in on different classes whenever he can because every bit of knowledge helps. Once school officially begins, the No Life Gamers head straight for the C-rank dungeon. At the entrance, they're greeted by the dungeon management system, which explains that every dungeon exists inside its own separate dimension, preventing outsiders from interfering. Alan loves hearing that because it means nobody can secretly watch him use his summons. The team enters the first floor, and Alan sends Hawkins ahead to scout. Their first enemy is a slime, which Cecile instantly destroys with a fireball. While Dogora and Kurina wish they could use magic too, Alan reminds them that everyone has their own strengths. Together, they cleared the first trial and reached the next floor. The dungeon then gives them a choice: keep going or leave and save their progress. They decide to play it safe and head home. After that, they spend every day off exploring deeper. Since progress is saved, Alan exploits the system by sending his summoned monsters to farm enemies while he attends classes, letting them level up even when he's away. After 50 dungeon runs, they finally reach the final floor of the C-rank dungeon. Cecile tells everyone it's time to see Alan's real power. He summons his entire army, and the battle is over in seconds, leaving Kirina and Dogora stunned by his overwhelming strength. Defeating the boss rewards them with a treasure chest containing a steel sword. Back at the Adventurers Guild, they upgrade their adventure cards and celebrate clearing their first dungeon. But as they enjoy their victory, a mysterious blonde student watches them from afar, hinting that their peaceful academy life is about to change. A month later, the class receives some big news. Next month, they'll have a special lesson taught by the legendary swordsman Deberg himself. While everyone else is excited, Alan couldn't care less. In his head, he wonders if the blue-haired legend seriously has nothing better to do. The instructor then drops an even bigger bombshell. During the 3-month summer break, every student must conquer a dungeon. Anyone who fails will be kicked out of the academy. Each party can have no more than 8 members. No help is allowed from upperclassmen or anyone else, and since dungeon runs can easily turn deadly, everyone is warned to take the assignment seriously. The classroom instantly turns into an online game lobby, with everyone desperately trying to recruit teammates. Kirina immediately receives several invitations and asks Alan what she should do. Instead of panicking, Alan starts advertising their own party. He explains that their 4-member team has already cleared 2 rank C dungeons and even flashes their adventure cards as proof. They normally explore dungeons twice a week, and any new member would only need to join them for one of those trips. Since the rewards are divided among only a few people, everyone earns a nice amount of money. The second Alan mentions profits, the suspicious-looking boy nearby suddenly develops excellent hearing. Later, while Kirina is struggling to finish the mountain of food she piled onto her plate, Cecil points out that nobody wants to join their party. Alan explains that most talented healers are recruited by the church, so they'll just have to wait and hope one appears. As if he had been waiting for his cue, Kill suddenly walks over and introduces himself as a cleric. He asks if the healer position is still open because he'd like to get to know the party better. Alan happily invites him to sit down, but Kill politely refuses, saying he avoids eating during the day. Alan stares at the glass of water in front of him and finds it hard to believe that someone that skinny is actually on a diet. Feeling awkward about eating while Kill just watches, Alan offers to buy him something instead. After thinking for a moment, Kill accepts. A few minutes later, he returns carrying a plate almost as enormous as Ken's and completely wipes it out in record time. So much for not eating. Once his stomach is satisfied, Kill asks the question he really cares about: how much money the party earns from dungeon runs. Alan says each member usually makes between 20 and 40 silver coins per dungeon. Kill is absolutely stunned. To him, that's a small fortune. Without wasting another second, he asks if he can join the party on a trial basis. Alan immediately agrees, and they arrange to meet the following weekend. The group is thrilled to finally have a cleric and treats Kill like a VIP. Although Kill finds their kindness a little suspicious, Alan secretly knows exactly why they're being so nice. A skilled healer is worth his weight in gold. As they continue exploring the dungeon, Kirina notices she's getting stronger after defeating monsters. Alan explains that party members share part of the experience they earn, so everyone grows together. On the 3rd day, they reach the dungeon boss and defeat it with excellent teamwork. After the battle, Kill easily heals Dagora's injuries. Alan learns that Kill didn't magically become a great healer overnight. He spent months working and training at the church before mastering healing magic, leaving Kirina impressed by how much effort it took. Later, Kirina trains under Deberg to learn a brand new sword technique. Following his instructions, she unleashes a powerful slash that successfully lands, but the attack drains all her energy and she collapses. Deberg explains that he intentionally put her in a real combat situation because the fastest way to improve is by fighting for real. Elmius then asks Alan when he'll finally reveal his biggest dream. but Alan simply smiles and says he'll share it only after he completely trusts him. Not long afterward, Alan officially introduces Kill as the party's newest member and also introduces him to his personal bodyguard. Thanks to their new transportation, the group can travel through dungeons much faster than before. Karina also gets to show off her newly learned technique by cutting down a massive monster with a single strike. After finally reaching rank C as adventurers, the party decides it's time to celebrate with a feast. Kill politely declines, though, because he's worried about his family, who have been struggling ever since moving to the Academy City. Hearing that, Alan comes up with a simple solution. Kill's family can move in with them, take care of the household chores, and earn a salary in return, a deal that could solve everyone's problems at once. Kill is stunned by Alan's generosity and asks why everyone is willing to help his family so much. Alan simply smiles and says that's what friends are for. Besides, having a talented cleric on the team is a win for everyone. Cecil even suggests using part of the dungeon rewards to pay Kill's family for collecting magic stones. After thinking it over, Kill gratefully accepts and soon arrives at Alan's house with his family. Alan notices that no priests came with them, but before he can ask about it, Kill's younger sister, Nena, politely introduces herself and thanks everyone for welcoming them. To celebrate, the group throws a huge feast. During dinner, Alan starts calling Kill "my good sir" and keeps encouraging him to eat as much as he wants. Kill immediately shuts that down, saying he doesn't want special treatment and would rather be treated like everyone else. Alan quickly agrees, although deep down he knows he was just trying to score a few friendship points. As everyone chats, Cecil mentions that she was surprised to learn Kill came from a noble family. His sister's elegant manners made it pretty obvious. Kill explains that his family used to be nobles but lost everything. After that, only his sister and a few loyal servants, who had nowhere else to go, stayed with him. Cecil apologizes for bringing up such a painful memory, but Kill calmly says he's already gotten used to living as an ordinary commoner. Nena then proudly declares that she'll work just as hard as everyone else. Dogora shrugs and says titles mean absolutely nothing to their group. Alan casually reveals that both he and Kiowa were born as servants, leaving everyone stunned since they had always assumed Alan was a noble. Cecil then admits that she actually comes from the noble Granville family. The servants immediately stand to show respect, but she stops them, reminding everyone that inside the academy, they're equals. The moment Cecil mentions the Granville name, the mood turns icy. Nena and the servants glare at her, and Kill explains that the Cardinal family was destroyed because of the Granvilles. He also reveals that his father was the illegitimate son of the Cardinal family and demands to know the truth. Cecil asks everyone to leave the room and tells Kill everything: the kidnapping, Alan's rescue, the assassin, and the conspiracy that destroyed his family. Although Kill struggles to believe it, she tells him he can verify the story in the capital. Alan then asks about Kill's childhood. Kill explains that his father cared for him until he was 5, but after the appraisal ceremony, he was sent away to another city with only a small allowance and no proper noble education. At 10, a tutor arrived, giving him hope that his father still accepted him. However, that hope vanished when his allowance suddenly stopped. Soon after, his sisters and the family's unemployed servants came to live with him, forcing Kill to work at the church to support everyone. Near the end of the year, a royal messenger claimed the Granville family had destroyed the Cardinals and promised that if Kill fought monsters for 5 years, the king would restore the Cardinal title and make him the new family head. Alan immediately realizes the royal messengers are still manipulating people. Ashamed of his family's past, Kill says he'll understand if everyone wants his family to leave. Even so, he vows to restore the Cardinal family's honor, reclaim its noble title, and give his family a home again, no matter how long it takes. Alan smiles and tells Kill that now he finally has a dream worth fighting for. He explains that every member of the party has their own goal, but they're all walking toward the same future together. That's why he wants Kill to stand beside them. Alan makes it clear that he doesn't care about the Cardinal name. What worries him is the brutal reality of war. He explains that nearly half the soldiers sent to the front lines don't survive even 3 years, and those who stay for 5 face even worse odds. Then he asks whether the royal messenger conveniently forgot to mention that little detail. Cecil quietly adds that her own brother died only a few months after being sent to war. That's exactly why they all need to become much stronger before facing the monsters waiting for them. Having a skilled cleric like Kill will cover the party's biggest weakness. Alan reaches out his hand and asks Kill to fight alongside them. Kill hesitates, saying he'll only be using everyone to achieve his own dream. Alan simply laughs and says that's perfectly fine because everyone should fight for what they believe in. He doesn't care about defeating the Demon King. His real goal is to reclaim the noble status that was stolen from him. Karina immediately agrees, saying they'll all fight together and earn back the futures they deserve. Cecil jokes that she's probably the first Granville ever to live under the same roof as someone from the Cardinal family. Finally, Alan tells Kill that he doesn't have to carry all that pain alone anymore. Hearing those words, Kill can no longer hold back his tears. For the first time in a long while, he feels like he truly belongs, and with a grateful smile, he officially joins the party. The next day, Kill's servants move all of their luggage into the house in no time. Kill is thrilled, while Alan quietly realizes that if they can handle moving this fast, household chores won't be a problem either. Just then, Maria introduces herself, and Kill's little sister is instantly fascinated by her. As Alan watches the scene, he remembers Kill's dream of restoring the Carnal family to the ranks of nobility. Supposedly, a royal messenger promised that the family would regain its noble status after 5 years of service. But the whole story sounds suspicious. Alan decides he'll investigate it later. For now, though, they have a much more important mission: clearing a rank B dungeon. Once inside, the group quickly notices that the dungeon looks similar to a rank C dungeon. But the monsters are much stronger, and the traps are far deadlier. Before moving forward, everyone drinks a panacea. It's basically a legendary cure-all potion that's supposed to heal almost anything. The potion tastes absolutely horrible, but after Alan finishes mapping the dungeon, he reminds everyone that only 1 out of every 5 challengers manages to clear this place. In other words, this is no time to get cocky. After summoning their mounts, the group speeds through the dungeon and soon spots what looks like a treasure chest. Kill's eyes immediately turn into gold coins because he's completely addicted to money. However, Cecil tells him to calm down because a treasure sitting out in the open is obviously a trap. Alan asks Maria to inspect it, and the moment she gets close, the treasure transforms into a hideous monster. Kill is crushed that it wasn't real treasure, while Maria, annoyed that the monster scared her, destroys it without breaking a sweat. Everyone is amazed that Maria defeats a rank B monster all by herself. Alan happily realizes that thanks to her improved stats, she can now handle rank B monsters while using only half of her mana. This time, they really do find a treasure chest, and inside is a mithril sword worth around 50 gold coins. With another successful haul, they continue exploring deeper into the dungeon. Suddenly, everything goes black. Sometime later, Alan wakes up completely confused, only for Cecil to scold him because he never drank the panacea. Alan calmly admits he skipped it on purpose because he wanted to run an experiment. While everyone wonders what kind of weird science project he's cooking up now, they decide to leave him alone since Alan usually knows what he's doing. Since he's going to be busy for a while, Dogora asks Kirina to spar with him so he can continue training. After waking up, Alan asks Maria what happened. She explains that one of the giant bird mounts stepped on a trap, releasing sleeping gas. The birds and Alan fell asleep because they hadn't taken the panacea, while the others stayed awake. Maria revived Alan using a special garnish created by one of his plant summons, which removes abnormal status effects. Curious, Alan triggers the trap again and learns the gas only covers about 5 meters. He also notices that animal summons fall asleep, while plant and spirit summons are unaffected. Through more experiments, he confirms his plant summons can also create powerful recovery items that restore HP, MP, and cure status effects. Meanwhile, Dogora finally activates his special skill and raises its proficiency, eagerly asking to keep exploring. On the dungeon's final floor, the party defeats a giant boar and an even larger super boar with ease. The boss chest contains scarletite gauntlets, an extremely valuable item worth hundreds of gold coins. Kill celebrates wildly, making Alan realize that despite claiming everything is for his family, Kill also has a strong love for money. Although the party has grown much stronger, Alan knows they are still unprepared for the coming war and decides everyone, including himself, must become even stronger before graduation. Over the next month, they repeatedly clear the Rank B dungeon, earning 34,000 magic stones and 425 gold coins. Alan exchanges the stones for over 310,000 Rank D magic stones, while the group buys a wagon, upgrades their equipment, and purchases a magic clock for dungeon exploration. Soon, everyone passes their final exams. By early August, they conquer a second Rank B dungeon, and the Academy's 2-month summer vacation begins. During the break, Alan sends a bird summon to his family with gifts and letters. Speaking through the bird, he surprises everyone. He asks Gerarda to deliver Kierna's letter and gives Mashu a letter for Dogora's family. When Gerarda admits he can't read, Alan jokes that he'll need to learn if he's going to help run a village. Alan comforts his little sister for not having a talent, reminding her that their parents also live happy lives without one. His father then reveals he's been appointed chief of a new frontier village, where both Alan's and Dogora's families will move next April to help establish it. Alan's messenger bird later visits Lord Granville, reporting that Kill turned out to be a genuinely good person and has been working well with the party. Alan then mentions Kill's claim that a royal messenger promised to restore the Carnal family to nobility after 5 years of military service. Granville says he has never heard such a promise, but admits that the king does have the authority to restore the Carnal family's noble status if he chooses. However, Granville points out one major issue. Since Kill possesses the rare cleric talent, the offer sounds far too suspicious. Any soldier who survives the war is already rewarded with special treatment, so there would be no need for such a promise. In fact, noble families willingly send their own children to the battlefield, but they desperately want skilled healers nearby to keep those children alive. Commoners and servants with healing talents are usually assigned to treat the sick and wounded inside the kingdom, leaving very few clerics on the front lines. The elves of Rosenheim help fill the gap, but for various reasons they cannot operate independently. That makes human clerics incredibly valuable and, unfortunately, incredibly easy to exploit. Granville explains that many young nobles secretly make deals to keep talented clerics, serving them even after their mandatory military service ends. Some are worked so hard they practically collapse, while others mysteriously never return home at all. Instead, they come back in coffins. Hearing this, Alan realizes the same fate could be waiting for Kill. Granville also reveals that the Carnal family distanced themselves from Kill as soon as they learned about his talent, suggesting they saw him more as a useful tool than as family. Everything suddenly clicks for Alan. After Kill lost his noble status and became a commoner, the royal messenger likely tricked him into joining the war. The only thing Alan still can't figure out is who truly benefits from this scheme. It makes him wonder if there's another mastermind secretly pulling the strings behind the scenes. Determined not to let his friend become someone else's disposable healer, Alan announces that he'll simply ask the king about it himself. Granville stops him and asks for the chance to handle the matter instead. After all, the fake royal messenger also spread lies claiming the Granville family framed the Carnals, and Granville refuses to let someone tarnish his family's reputation. Since there's still plenty of time before the war begins, Alan agrees to leave the investigation in Granville's hands. Time passes, and the group successfully clears their third Rank B dungeon. When they receive their updated Adventurer Guild cards, everyone in the guild is shocked to discover that they're still just students. The receptionist guesses they'll soon challenge a Rank A dungeon, but she warns them that very few adventurers dare to enter those places. The bosses are far stronger, and the dungeons are packed with strange traps no one fully understands. She advises them to study every available record before going in and suggests visiting the guild's auctions, where they can both sell valuable loot for a fortune and bid on powerful equipment. Alan immediately asks the important question whether they have any mana recovery rings. Unfortunately, the answer is no, crushing his hopes. Even so, Alan decides they'll study the dungeon's records and then head straight for the Rank A dungeon anyway. Once inside, several days pass as Alan sends his hawk summons across the enormous labyrinth to map every corner. When the others wake him up, he checks his notebook and realizes the hawks still haven't finished exploring. He complains that the dungeon is ridiculously huge before asking Maria whether the summons encountered any monsters. She casually replies that they did, but she already took care of them. Alan happily gets everyone moving again. As the party explores deeper, they're attacked by a Cyclops and 2 Orc Kings. Dogora and Yena quickly defeat the Orc Kings, but the Cyclops launches Dogora into the air, causing him and Cecil to accidentally trigger a teleportation trap that sends them to another part of the dungeon. While everyone else panics, Alan stays calm. Instead of searching blindly, he summons dozens of Maria clones to sweep the entire dungeon while Kyrina finishes off the Cyclops. He reminds the group that an organized search is far more effective than rushing around. Elsewhere, Dogora and Cecil are cornered by 3 powerful monsters. Dogora's attacks barely hurt them, and a heavy blow forces him to use his last life leaf to survive. With no healing items left, the 2 prepare to die. At the last moment, one of Alan's Maria summons arrives, drives the monsters back, and gives both Dogora and Cecil fresh life leaves. Alan immediately senses they've been found, and he, Kill, and Kyrina rush to rescue them. However, 2 massive Boar Kings block their path, forcing the trio into another difficult battle. Alan pushes his bird summons to search as fast as possible, but the dungeon is enormous, leaving him hoping Dogora and Cecil can survive until he reaches them. Dogora is barely hanging on after taking a brutal beating from the monster. Just when things are about to end badly, Alan and the rest of the party finally arrive. Without wasting a second, Alan summons his giant scorpion, whose venom freezes the monster in place. That opening is all Dogora needs to deliver the finishing blow. Everyone lets out a sigh of relief after seeing that both Dogora and Cecil are still alive. While the healers patch them up, Alan starts thinking ahead. If they keep walking into hidden traps, they'll eventually run out of luck. A scout would solve that problem, but recruiting one means going back to clearing C-rank dungeons until the new member becomes strong enough for A-rank missions. After pushing deeper into the dungeon, the party finally reaches the boss room. The huge doors swing open, revealing a massive A-rank boss that towers nearly 10 meters tall. Even the team hesitates for a moment, wondering if they're really ready for this fight. Alan, however, looks completely unfazed. Since it's an armor-type monster, he believes defeating it will prove they can handle any A-rank enemy. Confidently, he tells everyone to trust their own strength before charging in first. Thanks to the awakening ability he unlocked during his last level up, Alan has given his wall summons a powerful explosion skill. He drops a whole army of them on top of the enemy group before detonating them all at once. The blast wipes out every B-rank monster surrounding the boss. Alan is thrilled because it feels like he's casting a top-tier magic spell without actually knowing one. The giant boss survives the explosion, but it's badly weakened, leaving Dogora and Kyrina to finish the job. Kyrina rushes in first, but the boss immediately slams her into the ground. Luckily, Alan's knight substitution skill transfers the damage to one of his summoned knights, saving her life. Seeing the opening, Dogora sprints up the monster's arm and unleashes his strongest attacks. With the boss already weakened, the rest of the party joins the assault, overwhelming it until it finally collapses. The group celebrates after clearing their very first A-rank dungeon. Their reward chest makes the victory even sweeter by containing a Scarletite axe, which is the perfect upgrade for Dogora. The team happily gives it to him, and he gratefully accepts. Even so, Alan realizes that monsters like this are common on the front lines, so better equipment and more levels will be essential if they want to survive future battles. A mysterious dungeon cube suddenly appears and congratulates the party for clearing their first A-rank dungeon. As a reward, it grants them their first A-rank certificate. None of them have any idea what it's for, so the cube explains that collecting 5 certificates from different A-rank dungeons earns them the right to challenge an S-rank dungeon. Instead of feeling intimidated, Alan gets excited. To him, stronger dungeons simply mean stronger enemies waiting to be defeated. Back at the academy, Alan spends his free time sharing dungeon strategies with his classmates. Thanks to his advice, almost everyone successfully clears their summer dungeon and avoids expulsion. Only 3 students fail, and nobody seems particularly upset to see them leave. When one classmate asks if the rumors about Alan clearing an A-rank dungeon are true, he casually confirms it, making everyone admire him even more. Soon after, Krina asks Alan for a friendly sparring match, hoping to relive old times. Alan quickly refuses because his summons are still busy farming inside an rank dungeon, meaning he can't adjust his buff cards to fight at full strength. Krina looks disappointed, but before she can complain, their teacher volunteers to spar with her instead and drags her away. Since Krina is occupied, Alan agrees to spar with Rifle, figuring he's a much fairer opponent. During their duel, a broken piece of a sword suddenly flies straight past Alan's face, forcing him to dive out of the way. It turns out the flying blade came from Krina's fight with the teacher. After the match, the teacher admits that despite being only 13 years old, Krina is already nearly as strong as he is. Krina thanks him for the duel, but is completely exhausted after such an intense battle. After the duel, the teacher tells Alan and Krina that the headmaster wants to see them. On the way, he asks if they plan to keep clearing dungeons after conquering an A-rank one. Alan confidently says their goal is an S-rank dungeon, but they still need 5 A-rank certificates while their city only has 4 A-rank dungeons. When Alan asks about the teacher's record, he reveals he only cleared 3 A-rank dungeons, adding that only the legendary sword Lord Diverg has reached an S-rank dungeon in recent decades. At the headmaster's office, Krina asks if he's an elf, and he confirms he's over 1,000 years old. He then invites Alan and Krina to represent the academy in next week's martial arts tournament. Krina eagerly agrees, but Alan refuses because tournaments don't help him level up. Even the chance to fight Sword Lord Diverg isn't enough to change his mind. The day before the tournament, Granville arrives with Rifle and reveals that the king never made any promise to restore Keel's family after 5 years of military service. The royal messenger had lied from the beginning, leaving Keel furious. Fortunately, Granville brings a new contract already signed by the king, guaranteeing the Cardinal family's restoration after Keel completes his service, with the possibility of an earlier release if he earns enough military achievements. Granville and the Hamilton family both support the agreement, and Rifle reveals he is Rifle Hamilton, explaining that his father's influence helped secure the deal and protect Keel's family while he's away. Granville then reveals something even more disturbing. His investigation points to Crown Prince Invel as the mastermind behind both the fake agreement and the plot to kidnap Cecil. Unfortunately, there isn't enough evidence to accuse him directly, leaving the king unable to act. The next day, the martial arts tournament begins. Granville quietly points out Prince Invel watching the event from a private viewing box and warns Alan that his presence probably means trouble. As expected, Krina crushes every opponent and earns the right to face the legendary sword Lord Diverg in the final exhibition match. Despite her incredible strength, Diverg defeats her effortlessly without even breaking a sweat. After the fight, Alan and the others visit Krina in the infirmary and use one of Alan's healing items to speed up her recovery. That's when Prince Invel suddenly arrives and requests a private discussion with Granville. Sensing danger, Alan cleverly disguises himself as Granville's servant so he can stay and listen. Invel gets straight to the point. He's furious that Granville helped restore Keel's family. He casually mentions that the war on the Empire's border has become extremely deadly before hinting that Cecil could easily be transferred there as reinforcements. The threat is obvious. If Granville refuses to back down, Cecil could be sent to almost certain death. Invel then offers a cruel bargain. If Granville withdraws the agreement restoring the Cardinal family, Cecil will remain safe. Alan finally pieces everything together. Invel planned to keep Keel trapped in military service forever, so he would eventually have no choice but to become the personal healer for the prince's daughter. Granville is torn between protecting Cecil and keeping his promise to Keel. Before he can answer, Alan confidently steps in. He reminds Invel that Cecil is a member of his party, making her safety his responsibility. As her leader, he promises that no harm will come to her. Encouraged by Alan's confidence, Granville refuses to cancel the agreement, even though he knows the danger is real. 3 months later, Alan's party challenges another A-rank dungeon and faces a massive heavy dragon. Alan opens with his explosive wall summons, taking a huge chunk of the dragon's health. The team charges in, but the dragon repeatedly unleashes its flame breath. Alan uses his damage substitution skill to protect everyone at first, but he can't keep up forever, and Krina and Dagura are eventually hit head-on. As Keel rushes to heal them, Krina suddenly stands back up with a terrifying aura and an emotionless expression. She leaps into the air and slices off the dragon's arm in a single strike. Alan and Dagura realize she has activated her hidden extra skill, Limit Break, which boosts all her stats by 3,000 and restores 1% of her HP every second. With that overwhelming power, the battle is as good as over. After defeating the dragon, Krina levels up. But there's one problem: she has officially hit the level cap, just like the rest of the party. Alan is frustrated because he never expected this to happen so soon. In only 1 year at the academy, everyone except him has already reached the maximum level. He believes the Demon Lord is to blame, since his arrival boosted the strength of every monster on Earth. Stronger monsters meant faster leveling, proving that the world is becoming more unstable by the day. Dagura wonders if they're stuck forever, but Alan isn't worried. He explains that leveling isn't the only way to grow stronger. They can still master their extra skills, upgrade their weapons and armor, and search for a hidden way to break past the level cap. After all, plenty of games have secret level limits, and Alan is convinced this world has one too. With 2 years left before the war against the Demon Lord begins, Ellen boldly declares that the no-life gamers will become a force nobody can ignore. Soon, the group begins their second year at the academy, where 3 unusual transfer students instantly steal everyone's attention: 2 elves and a dwarf. The first is Sophia, the princess of the Elven Kingdom of Rosenheim, while the tall elf beside her, Volmer, serves as her loyal bodyguard. The third newcomer is Maru from the Bacchus Empire. Before class even starts, Sophia can't stop staring at Alan. He assumes she's just shocked by his black hair and quietly gets annoyed. Then the teacher notices Alan's party only has 5 members and casually volunteers him to babysit the newcomers. Lucky him. Alan invites them to lunch to discuss the party. Since adding more members won't reduce their experience gain, he has no reason to refuse. Sophia explains that she's a spirit mage, Volmer is an archer, and Maru possesses the incredibly rare Talos general talent. Unfortunately, she admits it's almost useless without a golem to control, though she's still determined to become stronger before the coming war. Alan is surprised they already know about the Demon Lord's invasion, but after hearing everyone's determination, he officially welcomes them into the no-life gamers. Later, the headmaster privately asks Alan to protect Sophia since she's the princess of the Elven Kingdom. Although Volmer is her official bodyguard, Alan is now the leader of her party, so he agrees. 4 days later, the new members move into Alan's house for a welcome party. After dinner, Alan decides to split the party. He and Dagura will train the newcomers in B-rank dungeons, while the original team continues clearing A-rank dungeons with support from Alan's summons. In the dungeon, Alan amazes everyone by revealing their stats through his grimoire before summoning Maria to Scout and Fran for transportation. The newcomers quickly prove their strength. Volmer easily snipes monsters, Sophia provides powerful spirit magic support, and Maru reveals her incredibly rare Talos general talent, which lets her command a giant golem. Unfortunately, she doesn't actually own one yet, even though a golem would make her powerful enough to defeat dragons. During the expedition, Alan notices Sophia treating him with unusual respect. She reveals that Lord Rosen once prophesied a raven-haired boy with the weakest stats who would someday save the world from darkness. The moment she saw Alan's summoning ability, she knew he was the chosen one. Soon after, the party reaches the dungeon boss. Sophia activates her extra skill and summons the Great Earth Spirit, Gnome, who instantly crushes the boss. She thanks Alan for helping her level up enough to use the skill, while Dagura points out that once-a-day abilities are incredibly powerful. Sophia reveals Volmer also has one, and Maru says hers will become useful once she finally gets a golem. By summer break, Alan's group has cleared 3 B-rank dungeons and even conquered an A-rank one. Just before vacation, Alan and Krina are summoned to the headmaster's office, where Helios announces the Academy's martial arts tournament. Krina eagerly joins, but Alan refuses, arguing that revealing his abilities would only make him a target for the Demon Lord, even after the headmaster reminds him of Lord Rosen's prophecy. Realizing words won't work, Helios accidentally drops an MP recovery ring. Alan instantly recognizes it as the rare item he's been searching for. Helios explains that these rings can't be found in dungeons because they're nearly impossible to create. However, if Alan defeats him after winning the tournament, the ring will be his. When Alan learns it restores 1% of his MP every second, he changes his mind on the spot and enters the tournament. With 2 months to prepare, Alan spends the entire summer farming magic stones across the kingdom, while his teammates conquer their 5th rank dungeon. His grinding pays off as his summon level reaches level 7, unlocking a new skill and powerful B rank summons. By the end of summer, Alan has also turned 14. When everyone reunites, the party proudly announces they cleared their 5th rank dungeon. But Alan steals the spotlight by revealing he conquered an entire rank dungeon and its boss all by himself. Sophia is stunned by how powerful he's become. Alan says his next goal is defeating Helios, but first he'll have to beat Krina, who happily accepts the challenge. Soon, the tournament reaches its final match, with last year's champion Krina facing the Academy's rising star, Alan. The packed arena watches as both display incredible growth. Alan's swordsmanship has improved dramatically, while Krina is stronger than ever. Watching from the sidelines, Helios smiles, convinced Alan is still hiding another trump card and wondering if he truly plans to win without relying on his summons. Krina doesn't give him any time to think. She warns him not to hold back and immediately launches a powerful air slash. Then she follows it up with her limit break, hoping to end the fight in one combo. But nothing happens. Alan realizes she still can't activate her extra skill whenever she wants. Even so, Krina keeps attacking non-stop while complimenting how much tougher Alan has become. Alan is happy she's enjoying herself, but from his point of view, he's fighting for his life. Krina suddenly notices Alan pulling out his grimoire and assumes he's about to summon something. She refuses to let that happen and instantly fires off Pyro Blast. The explosion lands perfectly, and the audience gasps. That spell is powerful enough to wipe out rank monsters, so everyone is convinced Alan is finished. Krina herself starts worrying that she may have gone too far. Then, just as the smoke clears, Alan suddenly appears right behind her. He stops his sword just inches from her neck and calmly reminds her of a basic rule. Never let your guard down until the battle is truly over. Krina smiles, admits defeat, and Alan is officially crowned the new tournament champion. Alan's victory leaves the audience stunned. A sword lord has been defeated by a summoner, making everyone wonder just how powerful summoners can become. Alan won't reveal how he survived Pyro Blast, only hinting that he spent the entire summer strengthening his unique abilities. Next, Krina prepares to face Verg, a level 60 warrior who's been stuck at that level for years. Worried she'll suffer the same fate, she's encouraged by Alan, who reminds her of his promise to overcome the level cap. Before the match, he secretly gives her agility-boosting rings, hoping they'll help if her extra skill finally awakens. As the battle begins, Verg boasts about slaying demonic gods. Krina tries activating Limit Break, but it still fails, so she attacks with Thunderous Blow. Despite her improved strength, Verg dominates the fight, landing heavy blows and eventually knocking her down with Earth Dragon Blast. He tells her that anyone this week will become another casualty in the coming war. Just when defeat seems certain, Krina suddenly begins glowing. Her extra skill finally activates, massively boosting her stats, rapidly restoring her HP, and allowing her to overwhelm Verg until he's knocked to the ground. Alan declares Krina the winner, but Verg refuses to accept defeat. He also begins glowing, declaring he won't lose until he's reunited with someone named Classes. Realizing Verg has awakened his own extra skill, Alan watches in shock as Verg enters the same empowered state and unleashes a devastating guard break, completely turning the battle around.